significant move. The Pope met with survivors of clergy sexual abuse in Portugal on Wednesday and blasted members of the country's Catholic hierarchy for their slow response to the long-ignored scandal, which he said had marred the Catholic Church and helped drive the faithful away. Pope Francis dove head-on into the crisis, roiling the Portuguese Church on the first day of a 5-day visit to Lisbon for the Catholic Church's World Youth Day festival. His trip comes at a delicate moment for the Portuguese Church. A panel of experts hired by Portugal's bishops reported in February this year that priests and other church personnel may have abused close to 5,000 boys and girls since 1950. The Vatican said the Pope met with 13 abuse victims for more than an hour at the Vatican Embassy and characterized the Pope's role in the meeting as one of intense listening. The victims were accompanied by church personnel in charge of child protection programs. The meeting with victims came after Pope Francis presided over a vigil service for Portuguese clergy and nuns at the capital's iconic Jerónimos monastery, where earlier in February, hundreds of people had gathered after this report was released to pray for the sexual abuse victims. And the encounter was aimed at trying to help the Portuguese hierarchy and the faithful come to terms with the Church's own legacy of abuse and cover-up. And many other European countries, remember, have gone through similar reckonings. The response by Portugal's bishops to the expert report's findings, however, added to the problem. Prior to the report, Portuguese church officials had insisted that there were only a handful of child sex abuse cases. After the documents released, the bishops initially refused to remove the named abusers from the ministry and said they would only compensate victims if courts ordered them to do so. Pope Francis acknowledged that many clergy and nuns in countries with once thriving Catholic parishes feel weary about their vocations because the faithful are increasingly detached from their faith. He demanded that bishops respond better to victims by accepting them and listening to them. The head of the Portuguese Bishops' Conference promised to devote special attention to the protection of the welfare of children and the undertaking to protect them from all kinds of abuse. The Portuguese Catholic Church also promised in March to build a memorial to victims that would be unveiled during World Youth Day. But guess what? Organizers scrapped the plan a few weeks ago. In February, a 500-page report revealed that at least 4,800 children were sexually abused by members of the Portuguese Catholic Church over the past 70 years. The accused members were mostly priests, and the commission investigating the issue said the findings were just the tip of the iceberg. The report mentioned that most perpetrators, around 77%, were priests and 57% of the victims were boys. The children were abused in Catholic schools, churches, priests' homes and confessionals, among other locations. The majority of the sexual abuses took place when the children were between 10 and 14 years of age, with the youngest victim being just 2 years old. While the Pope is visiting Portugal for World Youth Day, which is a global gathering of young Catholics, the world is talking about this sex scandal. Details about the scandal impacted the image of the institution and forced the Portuguese Roman Catholic Church to apologize to the victims. In fact, a poll in July by Lisbon's Catholic University of Portugal found that 68% of all Portuguese people felt that the church's image had deteriorated in the aftermath of this sex scandal. The investigating committee has recommended that the church should denounce all abuses, provide psychosocial support to victims and continue investigation into the case.
It is often accentuated by the disappointment and anger with which some people view the church, at times due to our poor witness and the scandals that have marred her face, and calls us to a humble and ongoing purification, starting with the anguished cry of the victims, who must always be accepted and listened to. You continue to request of us our special attention to safeguard children's well-being and the commitment to defend them from all kind of abuse. We see all of that, Holy Father, in your call for this path that we are on track for in alignment with all the church.
All right, time for us to take another quick break here on Global Lens. But on the other side, we have the latest for you on the big and shock announcement that was made earlier today by the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it.
It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great Chinese conundrum.
Nobody can contain it.